Howdy neighbor, how is your garden growing? Today in my garden, we're going to be talking about some of the best tips for your Florida vegetable garden this summer. But unlike the usual tips that I give, these ones are from you. Let's first start with talking about plants that do well in the summertime. And first up is Sunshine Jenny, and she's talking Puerto Rican black beans. Jenny enthusiastically recommends that you do Puerto Rican black beans. They are the winner. And I totally agree, Jenny. Puerto Rican black beans are amazing and they produce so much. And unlike some of our other bean varieties that are better suited for spring and fall, Puerto Rican black beans actually thrive in the summertime. And Jenny also wanted us to know that you need a large space, and this is so true. One plant can cover a huge area. She was saying an area of 5 feet by 5 feet for a single plant, which is a big amount of space. And also recommends that we have a strong trellis. So this is something that you don't want to be running on some sort of chicken panel type trellis. You want to be putting this on a proper cattle panel trellis or something as sturdy as that. But if you have those things in place, it's an easy plant to grow, and I 100% agree. This is actually the crop that when I volunteer at elementary schools, this is the one I start with. And the kids from kindergarten through 5th grade, they can totally get this to grow. And if they can make it grow, you can make it grow. But I know one of the major questions that a lot of people have is where to get it. Now, you're not going to typically find this at any of the big brand stores, and like not even big brand. You're definitely not going to find it at a Home Depot or a Lowe's. Not going to even find it at Southern Exposure. The only places that I've heard people have gotten it so far to date has been from Elise at Urban Harvest and Jara on Jara's Garden. Both of them sell seeds through their stores, and that's how a lot of people have gotten it, or from their fellow Floridian neighbors, or they found places sometimes on Amazon selling Puerto Rican black beans. Now, if you're not quite into Puerto Rican black beans, or you're having difficulty getting a plant or seeds, Sonia, she said, hey, don't forget about southern peas. For her, this is one of the hands down biggest producers for summer crops and good for your soil, which I think brings up such a good point of that having a plant that's doing two things in the summer, because it's hot, it's disgusting out here. I've been sitting here for like less than a minute, maybe 3, maybe 5, and I'm glistening and glowing. But having a plant that can actually help drive nitrogen back into our soil is a great idea. And southern peas are known to be able to grow really well here, whether you live in North Florida, Central Florida, or South Florida. And if you're looking to buy this one, you can typically find it on places like Southern Exposure Seed Exchange online, or one of the many local gardening groups. Now, if you're not into beans and you're looking to grow something else in the summer, Amy has a great suggestion for you. She's talking about Brazilian spinach. Now, I haven't tried this before, nor did I even know there was a thing called Brazilian spinach. So I love this suggestion that we can branch out into something that can provide us some greens in the heat of summer. And what I love about Amy's suggestion is she kind of gave us an idea of what location, because you know what works in North Florida versus what works in South Florida can sometimes be a little bit different. But she's smack dab in the middle of the state in a zone 9B. If it's growing crazy for her, whether you live in North or South Florida, it'll probably grow crazy for you too. Now, if you're loving the idea of a spinach alternative, Kelly has another alternative for you, and that's going to be Malabar spinach. She lives down in South Florida in a zone 10A, which means it's really going to be challenged not only by heat and humidity, but sun intensity, which is great. So if you live in a zone 10, but I've heard people growing this even further north in places like zone 9s and even in zone 8s. So if you don't want to do Brazilian spinach, why not try Malabar spinach? And Kelly even said it is basically indestructible. You can't kill it, but somehow Josh did. But that just shows that even as easy as some of these plants are, you still may struggle and kill it too. But the biggest thing is to have perseverance and just keep on pushing through, especially in summer. Now, one of the things that Dee brings up that I think is a great point, you should also be considering things like fruit in the summertime, because oftentimes these are low maintenance and not a lot of work and can be really good producers. And Dee down in South Florida, which you know is a challenging area, is growing figs, and they're doing well. I didn't even know you could grow figs that far south. I mean, if you told me banana, I would have been right there with you. But a fig in South Florida, in Palm Beach, wow. Way to go, Dee. It might be due more to Dee's strategy is how she's making one of these crops grow really well, which is she's growing it in a large pot. And she's doing it pretty economically by using something from the dollar store. And she's already harvested 15 figs, which means, and with the price of figs these days, she's already paid for everything, including the pot and the plant. In addition to figs, you should consider things like bananas and papayas and so many of the tropical fruiting trees like mangoes, which can really produce a lot of food over the summertime. But if you want to stick to classic vegetables, she also recommends okra, peanuts, Leaf and green amaranth and eggplant are also doing well for her. We moved from one problem of being in the dying hot sun, and now I'm in an area that's shadier and it's just full of mosquitoes. Now we need to move even a little bit further south, because some of these things, while they might do well in a Palm Beach, what about Fort Lauderdale? And Ashby, what she's doing is she has sweet potatoes and they're doing really well. She's also got soybean growing, so I love she's doing the combo. She's getting her tubers going. She's got something that's putting in nitrogen into the soil. Love it. She's also doing long beans and cantaloupes. And she has so much basil, it's going crazy. Similar to Dee, she's got a papaya tree, so she is taking advantage of those tropical fruits that can produce a lot during the summertime. And Jared brings up a really good point, which is that sweet potatoes can be used for their greens like a spinach also. So if you're not into those Malabar Brazilian spinaches, actually go ahead and use your sweet potatoes. He uses it as a spinach alternative in his cooking, and of course uses them in smoothies. I love these tips, and there's a really big theme, which is all of these were hot weather crops that are helping survive through late June, July, and August. Because as my husband likes to remind me, summer doesn't technically start until the end of June, even though it's hotter than hot at the beginning of June, but whatever. These things are what are gonna get us through these summer months. But also, some of the classic vegetables are doing well too. Now, as crazy as it may seem, some people not only are having success with hot weather crops like this roselle right here, but they're still having success with warm weather crops. People like Laura, one of our Florida neighbors here, she lives in North Tampa, which is kind of one of those funky things because it's a zone 10, but it's technically Central Florida. Laura is finding that her Sweet 100 cherry tomatoes are the best. She started them in September and they're still producing, and they are so sweet. Me, my tomatoes are long gone by now, and even my Everglades tomatoes have. But just a little bit of change in a microclimate, even within your own yard, can really allow these crops to survive and even thrive. Using things like shade cloths or positioning your garden in a place that in the summertime gets a bit more shade can allow you to extend warm weather crops into the early parts of summer. And if you're looking for other recommendations beyond Sweet 100 for seed varieties, SB, she's saying, guess what? Fairy Morris jelly bean hybrid tomatoes from last year survived winter great and keeps producing tons of delicious cherry tomatoes. Highly recommend. She's from the Orlando area. And I love that she gave us where she got the seeds. Fairy Morris, that's one of those packets that you can usually find in Home Depot, Lowe's, Target, Walmart, one of those places. And even at this time of year in the middle of summer, sometimes they still have up their seed displays. Some are getting rid of them because they're getting ready for back to school or for other seasonal festivities. like I'm sorry, it's summer, but why do we have Halloween stuff up already? But some of them will still have their Siki packets out, and you may be able to find this variety and be just like SB and have a lot of tomato production throughout the year. And this also brings up another point. Mine have totally faded out, but we heard from some people that their plants, especially these smaller tomato varieties, are still going even though it's summertime. But what's really cool is Bobby, who lives in St. Pete and is a Wild Floridian member, has found that things like her Everglades tomatoes and her purple Cherokees are getting a second wind. Here we are just basically at the end of June, early July, and she has had over 25 full-size green tomatoes and 1 or 2 have turned red. The Cherokees have about 15 and are about 1 inch around and all green. Hopefully by our July meetup, I can tell you if they sizzled or fizzled, or if I got any reasonable harvest. And if you're wondering what she's talking about July monthly meetup, well, that's for all of my Wild Floridian members. Every month we have a virtual meetup, and every week they get a bonus video. It's actually a gardening vlog, so you can see exactly what I'm doing and when I'm doing it, all the behind the scenes and the little details that keep this garden growing, thriving, and sometimes going a little, you know, wild. If you're interested in joining the membership, you can go find this join button, click and join any of the different tiers. Pick whichever membership is right for your budget and join us for the weekly vlogs and of course our monthly virtual meetup. Now, if you've been thinking to yourself, my tomatoes are similar to yours, Jacqueline, they have totally cut out as we've hit June, July. And especially for my people who are my like 9Bs, my zone 10s, you know, you're probably thinking, what could be growing that's kind of those classic? I know we can grow things like okra and roselle, but I just want like a classic vegetable. Well, you may be like Linda, who said her tomatoes have stopped producing. Everything else is out of the garden, but she's still growing poblano and cubanelle peppers. As you can see behind me in my garden, I am a zone 10B. It is filled with peppers. It is the one reason I have not cleaned out these beds yet. It's because there are so many peppers. And I love that Linda is doing cubanelles. I have been trying to promote cubanelles to everyone because they are one of the easiest ones to grow and they grow forever. I've had plants that have gone 18 months nonstop producing peppers every single month. Now, if you're looking for something that's more like a classic bell pepper, you may be like me and we've struggled with this, but Crystal Mermaid, she had some recommendations. She was recommending Southern Exposure has something called a Carolina Wonder, which has nematode resistance. Here in Florida, we got a lot of nematode problems. She grew both that one and the Charleston Bell, which I really love this because I have tried what you usually find at the store. You know, you can get them as starts or you can buy the seeds, which is California Wonder. And honestly, I've tried 3-4 times now and it has not, like I get a pepper, maybe 2, but not anything like I get on my other plants. So I'm really excited to try what Crystal Mermaid is telling us, which is the Carolina Wonder and the Charleston Bell. And Barbara is kind of in the same boat. She said California Wonder don't do well for her either, and she's in Clearwater. So just a hop and a skip from me over here in St. Pete. She's recommending also the Charleston Bell, a sweet pepper from Southern Exposure Seed Exchange, which you may have noticed I've mentioned them a lot. I have no affiliation with them. I just buy a lot of their seeds. What Barbara also tells us about the Charleston Bells and the California Wonders is they are smaller, but she's had good success with them. She started them from seed in the fall, overwintered them in this year, and pruned them back in early spring. She covered them with shade cloths when the temps hit above 90s, and they're still putting on fruit and rocking it this year, which is awesome. Thank you, Barbara, for the tip. Well, let's hit that next tip because you've noticed now we're talking about seeds for the future, which you might be feeling like, Jacqueline, I thought we only do the hot weather crops here in the summertime. We don't worry about warm weather crops, cold weather crops, but which brings us to Mr. Hamilton's tip, which is an old guy told me to start my Brussels sprouts in July. I said that old guy sounds pretty smart. Because that's one of the kind of things, it's kind of think if you've watched a lot of northern gardeners or if you're from the north, you start getting ready for your classic vegetable season in the winter time when you're bundled up inside. I see all of them up north and they're like got their seed trays all across their living rooms and family rooms and maybe in their garages. And here it's kind of the opposite. We start getting our seeds for fall ready at, well, not even at the tail end, kind of in the smack dab middle of the summertime. And yes, especially for Central and North Florida, yeah, we're gonna be starting seeds in late July for the fall. I go over this and a lot of other tips of things you should be considering doing for the summer in this video right here, which I'm gonna link at the end so you guys can get even more tips beyond all these great tips that our Florida neighbors are giving. And if you're looking for some other seed recommendations from our Florida neighbors, well, Just Goodness was saying Texas early grano onions did amazing for me. I'm just south of Lake Okeechobee. I planted seeds in huge planter in October, and when they were 4 to 5 inches tall, I planted them out. Fertilized them weekly with fish emulsion until they started bulbing. The ones that received full sun all day grew bigger than those that got patches of shade through the day, and that's good to know. I tried Texas grano this last year, but it was really on me. I started them way too late. I did a lot of stuff that probably was not great for them. So it's good to hear from others that the specific variety, which I know you can pick up from a lot of different places, especially Southern Seed Exchange. So you can go ahead and get those if you're looking for like a classic onion so that you can put in all the things. And with all this seed starting, you know, we can end up with a lot of seeds. We probably have a lot of seeds hanging around, and Saltwater Hippie has a great tip for us as we get ready to potentially buy more, or if we've done seed saving or we have packets from last year, we probably have like a lot of stuff on hand. So a tip for organizing seeds, I found the Bunker Hill Security 0.30 caliber ammo box, item 63135/61451 from Harbor Freight. Keeps all my seeds in one place. This one is plastic, but they carry it in metal too. I put mine in alphabetical order. You can also add index cards to make dividers. Thank you, Saltwater Hippie, because I really, my front foyer is just like a seed dumping ground right now. So I will be looking into this to see if I can get a little bit more organized with all my seed packets. Now we're gonna move away from vegetables for a minute. We're gonna just talk about general gardening advice with this one. And this comes from one of my fantastic Wild Floridian members, and that's gonna be the Bolo family. What Bolo family says is, on your strawberries, I noticed that in late May, the water table was so low that my sprinklers, reclaimed water, which my garden's on reclaimed water too, were barely putting out water. Maybe there wasn't enough pressure on your sprinklers to reach the pot. And they live in St. Pete also. And that is one of the things, is that as we move from drought season to the wet season, we can often find that certain plants, while they're near sprinklers or they're getting hit by rain, they still might not be enough for them. So what you should be doing, and this is one of the tips in that video that I'm putting at the end, is be checking all of your sprinklers, because even though we get a lot of rain in the summertime, we are now in the catch-up season. Ketchup? Not like ketchup and mustard, but catching up, because our water table is so low in the ground. The plants are really struggling to actually get water. But if you can get them through that drought season and we start getting rain, they might start to bounce back. And so I was able to save one tiny strawberry, which is putting out flowers amazingly. And of course my camellia is starting to bounce back with some fresh green leaves. Kind of gross out, it's hot, it's humid, the sun is intense, blech, right now. Which brings us to our next Florida neighbors tip, which is another one of my Wild Floridian members, yay! And Red Cherries agrees because she's also taking a break this summer besides doing the main hot crops, which a lot of those hot crops, which are great, I'm sure Red Cherries would agree with me, it's like you kind of like get them in the ground and then it's like, just leave them in general. The majority of the time you don't really have to fuss at them, unlike our hot weather crops and our warm weather crops and cold weather crops. Those take a little bit more hands-on, but that's okay because it's in the better time of year. But beyond how hot and humid and gross it is outside, Monica, aka Oreo Pack, brings up a really good point, which is that this time of year we need to be thinking beyond what's just happening in our garden. Monica was all about the safety tips both in our gardens and out of our gardens. She really talked about the humidity and heat conditions are a result of more of those dangerous wet bulb conditions. Basically that has to do with it being hotter, is that your body has trouble cooling itself off. So even though if you lived in a drier climate, my Arizona people who are here, my New Mexico people, my South Californians, they can handle a lot more heat because it's a dry heat. But part of that is because we cannot evaporate the sweat off ourselves down here in Florida. So she was talking about the wet bulb effect. Also, she was warning us about mosquitoes. There's been a lot of different mosquito-borne diseases. Fun fact, I was quizzing my kids the other day. I was like, what animal kills more people? And it's like mosquitoes and snails. Nothing, not the sharks and alligators that people would think about. And it's because of things like malaria, and this year it's been dengue fever. Monica also brings up some really good points about having your trees inspected because, you know, we do get storms. Even if we don't get hurricanes, we do get bad storms that can really knock down some old limbs that can come crashing down on our houses. But worse, our gardens. Is that worse? I don't know. You decide and let me know. She talked about that she's had hurricanes that have left less debris. So it's a really good time of year to do kind of a quick inspection yourself, or you can pay someone for it. You can choose, but do look out for those big limbs that can do quite a bit of damage. And that brings up, and Monica referenced a video that I put out before. I've done videos when we've had hurricanes coming the last few years with not only Ben and I showing how we prep for those hurricanes, but also having my dad, who is a past emergency services director and has dealt with hurricanes from Andrew to Wilma, plus many, many more, dealing with them, impacting his jurisdiction and recovering from them. So if you want to go check those out, you can find them all over my channel. Now, if we're looking for some really easy activities to do that can get us in a good place for the fall season, our friend over at Southern Latitudes, howdy neighbor, you should go check out her channel. She said she's definitely composting in place this year. One year it was rabbit manure with each cleaning. So I guess if you would like to get your kids or yourself a rabbit pet, this is a way you can use up a lot of their, you know, stuff. This year she's gonna be using her chick coop cleaning and dumping tons of kitchen scraps into her beds. But you know what, let's mention Beth Eddie's comment below it because she's counting on Southern Latitudes for onion help. So while I am okay at doing onions, check out Southern Latitude for someone who is even better at onions. Now, we've talked a lot about edible plants, mostly the veggies, a little bit of the fruits, and a little bit of general strategy, but maybe you've been looking at these yellow flowers behind me and thinking they look so pretty. Maybe I want some of those in my garden, but it's summer. But that's the thing, when it comes to our native flowers, you can add them in summertime, and that's what Linda recommends. She made a native flower garden in her front yard and is doing great. She saw the video that I did with my buddy Katrina. So if you've ever seen Homegrown Florida, her and I are actually friends, not just in videos. And she liked the idea of incorporating natives with her vegetables. And that's one of the things, if you get the natives in now and they get into blooming, they're actually gonna help you produce better warm weather crops. If you're one of my veggie people, they definitely bring in the bees. I have so many bees in my yard, not at the moment, probably because it's silly hot out at the moment. So if you're looking for something to do that's a little bit more than just, you know, buying seeds and getting ready for your veggie garden, consider getting some of your native flowers in. I personally love native wildflowers, and I'm so happy to see more and more of you guys get into native wildflowers and native flowers and create cottage gardens and butterfly gardens. And if you've been loving all these tips from your Florida neighbors, one, I've been posting neighbors' comments in the community section. So if you don't have your subscription and notifications turned on, you might be missing some of them. There are tons of those, plus fun polls to see what other people are interested in, plus some quizzes. And if that's not enough to help keep you on track, maybe you should consider Janine's tip. She said, "My niece gave me your Wild Floridian garden planner. Hooray!" Yay! Gave her the planner this past Christmas, and it was a game changer. Between that and your videos, I'm coming to understand why I've struggled with classic veggies in Florida. I'm so happy for you, Janine, and I'm so happy the planner helped you. And if you want to go ahead and pick up that planner, you can go ahead and click this link right here. And while our Florida neighbors have given us so many tips, if you are looking for all the tips you really need to have a successful start to your fall vegetable garden, check out this video right here. Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye.